The biggest clash we have been waiting for in the group stage finally has come to an end, and it's a game that sold a lot of action, a lot of excitement, but we couldn't get a winner. And fair result for each side, or you feel Germany had done that?
I think that it was a fair result for each side. Clearly, if you look at the game, how everything unfolded in the first half, it was the two teams cancelled each other. In the second half, Spain scored through Alvaro Morata. Then Germany crawled their way back. It was a game that in the second half, the two sides went at each other. As it felt that the Germans were going to nick the win, especially when they had equalized, but they took their feet off the gas, and Spain grew into the game and almost looked like they also wanted it in the end. But in the end, it ended 1-1. I think that this favors Spain more than it does favor Germany, because as we speak, Spain are on top with 4 points, and they're coming up against a Japanese side they can actually fancy their chances against. Don't forget that Spain beat Costa Rica by, I think, about 7 goals to 0. Then Costa Rica beat Japan. So clearly, if the dynamics of football is anything to go by, Spain can fancy their chances against this Japanese side. So in a way, Spain only wanted to avoid the defeat, but it leaves the group wide open. And going into the last round of matches, trust me, we would have blockbuster games, because as we speak, Germany are on 1 point, Costa Rica on 3 points, Japan are on, Spain are on 4 points. If Germany win, they end up, with 4 points. Depending on the result between Japan and Spain, Germany could win that game against Costa Rica by even scoring 100 goals and still go out if that game between Japan and Spain end in a draw. So it leaves the group very wide open. And for me, today's game was that game that literally spoke about the strength of the two sides. Both sides are literally trying to build. Look at the German side is literally build a new crop of German talent. And so for me, they cancelled each other, and it's a fair result. I don't know about you, Goofy.
Well, I think it's a game that we got to see two contrasting styles. The Spanish, yes, because of the philosophy that Luis Enrique comes from. I mean, predominantly the tiki-taka philosophy. They try to hold on to the ball, but the Germans were very quick. They were quick in transition. They tried to break from the midfield, and because they have a lot of speedsters at the front line, they tried to break the Spanish. And I think that it was a great game. Two great tactical minds, Hansi Flick together with Luis Enrique. Like he said, in the first half they tried to size each other up, but you look through the game, you realize that the Spanish were on top for most parts of the first half. Even in the course of the second half, the Spanish were also on top, and then they had to get a goal. If you look at the two teams that played today, if you look at the number of tactical switches that we made in the course of the game, obviously these two teams, should they advance to the latter stages of the competition, should be able to live up against any other opponent. So for me, fair results. One of the highlights of the World Cup so far. I mean, we never expected to see some of these fixtures, but it also tells a lot about the strength of the European game. I mean, it is no for any reason that they have the most slots when it comes to the World Cup, because we are guaranteed some of these games. Great game for the neutrals.
You look at the group table now. Spain top, 4 points. Costa Rica, Japan, second and third, 3 points apiece. Germany, bottom of the pile. When the draw was made, did you ever envisage such a scenery? And now Germany could face the probability of suffering from their own showing. Now, if you remember 1982, there was the shame of Gion, where Austria and Germany actually conveniently played to a 1-1 draw to eliminate Algeria. Now, Germany have themselves facing the same scenario. And could we ever have that?
Well, I think that if you look at the games that have been played, I mean, Germany relatively have issues going in their favor, because they need to play Costa Rica and then hope that either of Japan
And
or
Spain.
Spain can beat each other. You understand? Because if you look at the permutations, once Germany have Costa Rica, which I think they should be able to. They should get to 4 points. Then Germany, Japan. Obviously, the Germans, I
Spain,
mean,
Japan.
Spain, Japan, sorry. The Spanish, with the sort of position they are in and knowing very much the dynamics of the second round, they would want to avoid the top place teams in the other groups. You understand? So I think that there's everything to play for, and if we are going to be fair to the principles of fair play, I think that we should see Germany and Spain qualifying, with the former being the group round this up, second place team in Germany, and Spain qualifying the group from top of the group. Because I think that if the Germans play to their fullest strength, the Costa Ricans cannot live with them. If the Spanish play to their potential, and listen, if you've watched the Spanish and if you've watched the Japanese, you realize that similar styles of football. This time around, Luis Enrique, yes, even though he belongs to a tradition, it's not really letting this team play like a real Spanish team. It's a mixture of direct football and then possession football. So I think that whichever approach that the Japanese use in this particular game, the Spanish have young blood in their team. They have boys who can run for 90 minutes, and it's been one of the praise there for Asian football. You understand? I mean, they are blessed with a lot of stamina. They are blessed with a lot of speed. I think that on the basis of what we have seen so far, on the dynamics of everything that we have seen so far, if the Germans and the the Europeans in this group play to their fullest strength, they should be able to quickly dispatch of their opponents in the last round of games. I expect the Spanish to be the Japanese. I expect the Germans to be the Costa Ricans, and I expect the Spanish and the Germans to qualify in the order.
On the evidence of Kamalaki, would you say we need a repeat of what happened in Spain? Because practically they conspired to kick out Algeria. Do Japan and Spain serve Germany a taste of their own medicine?
You know, it's actually the reason why FIFA had to introduce games that are played
Simultaneously.
simultaneously.
That was the
So
root
literally,
cause.
Germany are the reason why FIFA introduced this rule, and they are likely to suffer for that. But I do not think that the Spanish and the Germans would play any game of or match of convenience as we've come to know it. Kofi talked about how Luis Enrique has been very conservative in his approach, and he literally blends he has this conservative approach as well as this modern day, approach to his game. There was a reason why he decided he would not go for the best Spanish player in the last 5 years in Iago Aspas, who has led the La Liga goal scoring, chart for any Spanish team and has equaled, David Villa's record for the most goals scored by a Spanish player. People clamored for, why won't you play this guy? Why won't you include this guy? He says, no, I want players who be very direct. I want players who would run. It's the reason why he's gone for more players who are more, pacey and love to play wide. Look at, Inyaki's brother, Nico Williams. Look at Ferran Torres. You cannot compare these two guys to Iago Aspas in terms of goal scoring and output. Even Alvaro Morata, you can't compare, but he needs players, like Kofi said, more direct players. Yes, the first time in the history of the World Cup, outpassed an opponent for 1,000 to 1. They did it against Costa Rica. They blend that usual Spanish passing football, progressive possessional football, but there's also that bit of a little bit of the German style, very direct. They run at you. So for me, when the draw was made, we all tipped Germany to probably win the group, then Spain will play second. But it's increasingly looking likely that Spain might end up topping the group, because yes, Germany might beat Costa Rica. If Germany want to qualify, they need to score a lot of goals. Should it happen that what is it called, the game against Spain
In
and
Japan.
Japan, it does not favor them. They need to score a lot of goals. But for me, I think that we might see one of the big guns dropping out. I wouldn't be surprised if that game between Spain and Japan ends up in a draw, because let's not count the Japanese out. There was a reason why Japan was able to claw their way back in that game against Germany, because if you saw the game from the 60th minute goal, Japan started exploiting the using their pace. It looked at some point, it looked like Germany were tired. I'm sensing that in that Spanish game, we are exploiting the use of their pace in that Spanish game. It's going to be a beautiful game. It looks like we were discussing off air. It clearly looks like almost all the groups so far that the two games have been played are likely to go down the wire in the last game, and this is what we are expecting to see. But for me, I'm excited what I saw today. If these two teams are able to make it out of the group, they'll be a tough opponent for any of the potential winners that people are talking about in Argentina, in Brazil, in maybe France. Because this Spanish side, a lot of people did not give them a dog chance, but the way they've played in their last two games, and Kofi has said it, they've been very, very good. They've been tight at the back, they've been tight in the middle, and when they go for it too, they look very threatening. The likes of Pedri, the likes of Gavi, the likes of Alvaro Morata, Omo, Asensio. These guys, we may not classify them as world class players, but they fit in a perfect system. And for Luis Enrique, listen, I think he's justified all the call ups he's made so far. Maybe if they eventually do not win it, that's when the Spanish press can come out and bite off his head. But I think that is going to be a beautiful game. Those last games, it's going to be interesting.
So you look ahead to the possible or potential matchups. Currently, Spain occupy the top spot.
Yep.
And if things remain as it is in, they could go on to face Morocco. And then should Croatia remain at the top and Spain and Japan remain second, you could have a potential Croatia versus Japan.
Or Croatia versus Germany.
Or Croatia
That
versus
would be an
Germany.
interesting matchup.
But given what we've witnessed at this World Cup,
yeah.
a World Cup full of upsets, and there was one today which we'll be talking about pretty shortly.
Yeah.
Are you foreseeing a scenario where Japan and Costa Rica both go through? Because remember, Japan have 3 points, Costa Rica have 3 points. If both win, Spain and Germany, they will both sail through.
It's a possibility, and I think that one team that we are not counting is Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Let's not forget they have 3 points, and they know that all other things being equal, even if they pick up a draw against Germany and Spain beat Japan, they are through because they have a better head-to-head against Japan. So Costa Rica are not out yet. The fact that they've won a game gives them every right to go toe-to-toe with Germany. I'm seeing that game as also another bloody game. They will not give the Germans an inch. If they had drawn against Japan, then you would have said, oh, they have nothing actually to gain necessarily. But for the fact that if they get a draw, they can make a case, at qualifying. But I do not think that these two minnows would actually qualify ahead of the two superpowers in the group.
Versus number 22 today, and 22 prevailed. A night to remember in Rabat and Casablanca. But for Belgium, they are staring down the barrel and the potential of a possible group stage exit.
Well, I think Belgium make nonsense of that whole FIFA. For me, I mean, watching them play in this World Cup, they don't look like the second best team in the world. I mean, in terms of football ranking, I think that all throughout the two games they've played, they struggled in the first game. Today, they were absolutely flat. And you look at the starting 11 that Roberto Martinez had to put on the pitch. They looked clueless, they looked old, they looked lethargic, they looked like they were not interested in whatever was happening on the pitch.
Kevin De Bruyne says they are too old.
Well, I wouldn't want to discount some of the things that he said, because if you look at the Belgian team, I don't think that they are the principles of meritocracy that runs through this team, because I think that for most of these teams that are doing very well at the World Cup this far, the coaches have always placed emphasis on who is at this material time in the form. You understand, in the form of his life. We watched the Argentina game yesterday. In the first game, you realize that Romero had to play. Second game, they had to put in Lisandro Martinez. And for me, you look at Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard used to be a great player. He's not the same player he used to be. And to think that somebody like that is still the captain of the Belgian national team speaks a lot about the culture of that particular dressing room. I am not too surprised the results that Morocco got. And the only thing that amazes me about the Morocco results is that they've gotten to play against Croatia, they've gotten to play against Belgium, and they have not conceded a goal yet. I think that if you watch the Moroccans play, there's one element that is at play constantly: organization. This time around, the players are playing for themselves. There's more unity in the camp. They are more united than ever. And for me, I am absolutely proud of this Moroccan team. In the past, I mean, the mantra had been that the Maghrebian zone, the countries in the Maghrebian zone, they go there with a lot of promise, fail to deliver at the World Cup. But it looks like Morocco is turning around that particular tie. I mean, in the last few days, he had been that, so okay, no African country has been able to score a goal. Then Ghana opens the canwem of goal scoring. Then Senegal follows. Then Morocco does what it did today. I think that by far it's one of the most impressive results that we've seen in this tournament. To think that a coach who took over this team not too long ago has been able to organize the boys and let them play in the manner that they have, and to have that belief and to hang in there, and get two late goals against the Belgium. I think that it speaks of the mental strength of this Moroccan team. And I think that there was one thing that was also evident. The Tunisian supporters were supporting the Moroccans. And for me, it was a beautiful African reunion. You understand? I mean, I would wish that, if Nigeria had made it, and whoever explains, would have seen Nigeria and Ghana in this. Yeah, we would have seen Nigeria and Ghana in the same stadium. We'll be wearing our green and white. They'll be wearing their red, gold, green. We'll be saying Jama. We'll be doing all of the things. But for me, I think that this World Cup had a lot of negative connotations, but the football and the results that it is generating, it's letting those issues go to the back burner. And I think that we are having a great World Cup this far.
Lucky, Kofi speaks about the narrative and organization. Now, let me begin with the narrative. No national team had ever kept a clean sheet against Croatia since 2006. Yeah. Morocco defied that logic. Belgium had not lost a World Cup game, group stage game, actually, to be specific, since 1994. They defied that logic. Walid Regragui took over just in September, having no prior international experience. In 6 games at the helm of Morocco's national team, they have kept out 6 opponents. In 9 hours of football, they have failed to concede. Yeah. He's changing the script, he's changing the narrative.
He's changing the script, he's changing the narrative, and well, you've put it, spot on. Listen, if you look at, Walid and the job he's done with this Moroccan national team, he's put together a crop of experienced and young players. Look at a young chap that came off and got them the first goal.
Abdelhamid.
Yes, and if you look at the likes of Amrabat in the middle of the park, bossing the game, and today he was brilliant in that game against Croatia. He was the guy that neutralized Luka Modric and the likes of Kovacic. He's been. I'm surprised. He's an old horse. He's not playing like he's an old player. Sofiane Bouffa. These guys have been brilliant, and for me, Hakim Ziyech has proven why the coach had faith in him and called him, because we know he had his issues with the former coach. What's his name? Halilovic. And so for me, this Moroccan team, like Kofi said, for you to play 2 of the toughest opponents in this World Cup. Listen, they played Croatia. Croatia have not changed their team. The team 4 years ago is literally the entire team that's playing, apart from maybe Ante Rebic and all these guys who are not in the team. Croatia is solid. Belgium, like Kofi said, they are the world's second best team. We've seen the progression of this Belgian team in the last 4 years, in the last 2 years, in the last year, what they've been able to do. Forget about their sometimes the fact that they flatter to deceive, but they are a very good side. Do not possess, the likes of Leandro Trossard. Do not possess the likes of Kevin De Bruyne. You don't have all these great players. The Telema. You don't have all these great players, and all of a sudden they become a bad team. And for you to be able to shut them out, they do not concede against these two sides. So let's I think we need to begin to rewrite the narrative, thinking that the West African teams are the teams that are likely to carry African forward. Because when we saw Morocco in the first game, everybody said, "Oh, we seem to have gotten it wrong," and they've proven it today
Exactly.
against Belgium. They beat them flat. They didn't allow the Belgians to create enough chances. They stifled the Belgian attack. Kevin De Bruyne in the last two games has been non-existent, and today too likewise he was non-existent because of the presence of Amrabat in the middle of the
Amrabat.
park. Then in defense, Kofi talks about how they've shut a lot of these quality teams down. It's down to
Size.
Size and what is Hakimi. Brilliant organization at the defense. They are leaving nothing to chance. So I think that, listen, you watch the Moroccans play and they are very well organized side, from defense to the midfield
Midfield.
to the attack, the progression of the ball. They know what they are doing. We speak about the Saudi Arabian team and the fact that this is a well coached team. If you critically look at the Moroccan team, they are a very, very well coached team. And like you said, there's a guy who's been in charge for literally 2 months,
Yes.
and Walid needs to be given all the plaudits. Hats off to him. Brilliant job he's done with this Moroccan side. And for me, there's no way, unless, like Kofi says, and Kofi may say, and we all say, unless the African thing happened in their last game, it gets into their head, and for some reason they lose heavily, because the group is still wide open. Croatia has 4 points. Morocco has 4 points. Belgium has 3 points. Canada has no point. So between Belgium, Morocco, Croatia, any of these three sides can
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 qualify.
can can, can qualify. The only advantage going into that game is that Morocco are playing Canada and Belgium are playing Croatia. The two sides can try and cancel themselves out. So I'm hoping that they will go into that game with that mentality that we are not there yet. We just need a draw to get through. If we can get a win, we need to go out for it. But for me, brilliant win for Morocco, and I'm excited for the African contingent.
So this is a tournament where we finally see two African teams in the knockout phase, because you find Senegal, who have themselves in a very good
Yep.
position of making it out of the groups. Morocco have put themselves in a very comfortable position as well. It's down to Croatia and then Belgium to slug it out, because either way there'll be points drop in that particular game. Do we have those two already?
In 2018, yeah, I think we had two African
In
countries.
2018, no African side made it out of the groups.
2014 rather,
Yeah.
yeah, we had two sides, Nigeria and one other team making it, or
Algeria.
Nigeria making it out of the group stage. So it will be exciting after a very poor showing in 2018. For me, I've always clamored for the fact that if you look at the number of teams on the African continent, we have 53 plus. Europe is also around 53 plus. Yet they have over 16 teams. South America, around 10 countries. They have about 5 teams or 6 teams. The Oceanian and Asian region are presenting 5 teams. Africa has 53 representing 5. How do you expect us to, in a way, rub shoulders with these guys? So I'm hoping that we can make a claim, or we can make a bold statement with our qualification to the next stage and tell Europe that, listen, we've arrived. We had an extensive discussion on if an African team can win the World Cup. And if we want to prove to Europe, we want to prove to the rest of the world that Africa has that, capability and the ability to win the World Cup, we are putting ourselves in the right stead. Because, like you said, Senegal look like if they're able to pick up a draw against Ecuador, they can sail through. Ghana is not out yet. Tunisia, maybe because of their failures against Australia, we do not want to count them. Cameroon are not out yet as well. Morocco are looking like they have one foot in the round of 16. So I will not be surprised if we have more than even two African countries making it out of the group.
If we finally in this group, then gone to tournaments with so much promise that have failed. It's the end of the road for this golden generation.
Well, I think if they do exit the group stage, should be the end of the road for Roberto Martinez, who I think is the biggest problem. I mean, I
They've
think
had
that
Wilmots.
no, they've
No,
not
they
had
need
good
a proper
coaches. I
coach.
mean, they've not. I was telling Lucky of it that if you give this Belgian team to Luis Enrique, he'll do a lot of magic to it. If in fact, if you give the Belgian team and the English team to proper coaches, they'll do a lot of
You
magic. You
always have to
understand?
drag
I am
Southgate.
telling you, Southgate. I think Southgate is only slightly better than Roberto Martinez.
But he's
So
made the final.
exactly. I mean,
Better
so
than Martinez.
I look at the Belgians. I mean, they are disaster waiting to happen. For me, not too impressed about some of the elements in there, and I think that it's down to coaching. I have always said that if you looked at today's game, even some of the changes that he made, a bit questionable. They have served the purpose. They have not been able to win anything in their very prime. They should start focusing on the new generation.
So tomorrow it's do or die, make or break for two African countries, Cameroon and then our very own Black Stars. Cameroon faced a tough tie against Serbia. Two sides who lost their opening game, and whoever loses will be heading back home. The Black Stars find themselves in the same scenario. If they fail to get anything out of the game against South Korea, they will be heading home. Let's start off with Cameroon and then we finish off with the Black Stars. Cameroon, Serbia. Where does this end?
Well, I looked at the Cameroonians against the Swiss. They were undone by naivety, a lot of naivety. The Swiss just played a particular leaf out of their textbook. Get the ball on the right, make a cut it back. Somebody needs to get it back home, and Mbolo was there to get home that particular cutback. And they did not do it once, they did not do it twice, they did not do it three times. They did it on a couple of occasions. So I think that the left full side position of Cameroon has a problem that the coach needs to look at, because the penchant at which the Swiss attacked that particular flank was a bit worrying for me. I look at the Serbians. They are Eastern Europeans. They are physically built. They are tall. They are muscular. They are athletic. I think that if the Cameroonians are going to beat the Serbians, they need to put the ball on the turf. They need to let their skills be at play. They need to master that element of playing in spaces. You understand? Because you look at the Serbians, they are very good players, but I'm sure that watching the Cameroonians play, if they're able to make the right selection, if they're able to put all of the politics in camp behind them, they should be able to get decent results against the Serbians. Indeed, I will not be too surprised if they play well. They should be able to beat the Serbians.
Five Kims, two Hwangs, and they've got one son whom will be coming up against tomorrow.
Before I go to that, a bit on the Cameroons. Listen, I watched them against the Swiss side. The attacking try of was it Mbuemo,
Yeah. Toko
Toko
Ekambi
Ekambi, and
Choupo-Moting.
Choupo-Moting. It didn't seem to work. They were on different parallels or wavelengths. I do not know what communication might have their preparation for that game, because there were moments in that game that I felt that Cameroon should have been two or a goal or two ahead if there was proper communication among the front three. This is the World Cup. You don't go seeking individual glory. Team first before individual glory. But if you watch that attacking trial, especially in the first 20 minutes of the game against Switzerland, they were practically playing a bit of individual games. When there's some point you could easily square the ball to Ekambi, had chances where you could have squared the ball to Mbuemo likewise. So for me, Rigobert Song needs to speak to his team. He needs to tell them that let's create that synergy. Let's work together as a team, because he usually plays a flat 4-3-3 formation. And we spoke about the left fullback. It is a position where I'm expecting that the likes of Ekambi and Nguisa would show up, because when they come forward, they obviously leave spaces behind. Then I watched the Serbians against the Brazilians. It was how good Brazil were. That was how they were able to break the Serbians down, because the Serbians are very compact, very, very strong side to break down. And Cameroon should not take the Serbians for granted. They will be laughing at the wrong side tomorrow if they take them for granted. I'm expecting a Serbia win, sadly, because I think the Serbian side is a proper unit compared to the Cameroonian side that is just an assembly of a crop of good players. I wouldn't mind if he can drop what is it called, it can be or Chupo Motin, and bring in Vincent Abubakar, because I feel he's been part of this team. They know how to play to restraint instead of putting him on the bench. Ghana, the Black Stars have no other choice than to go for the win. Listen, I watched them against Portugal, and I feel that we played in moments. We picked moments when we decided to play. How we set up to be a bit, not a bit, we set up to be very defensive against the Portuguese. Some may say that we paid too much respect, we showed too much respect to the Portuguese. Some may also argue that, listen, you're coming up against a very well drilled side, had so much quality, you do not want to open up. They will tear you apart. But if you look at the different moments in the games when Ghana decided to play, there was a clear indication that we could have a go at this Portuguese side and actually, pin them to their back to goal and actually cause them trouble. Because I looked at somebody like Kudus in the close about almost about after the first half. It was, I think, in the second half, that's when we saw Kudus come into his very own, try to take him on. My advice to Otuado for tomorrow's game is that everything good in that game should run through Kudus. From what we have seen, everything good should run. They should give him the ball. He should have more of the ball. Make those runs. Try and beat 2 or 3 players. When they bring him down, we should try and capitalize on those things. My second advice for Otuado is that it's time he decided to tell Partey that I want you to do what you've been doing at Arsenal. I'm not going to push you forward. Push Partey back forward. Take off Salis and Kofi. I would prefer he partner Partey and Kofi. Give Kofi that ability to go forward, because when he came on, we saw the quality that he brings on board. This is one of the few changes I expect him to make. Secondly, I don't want to see Baba Rahman in there because the space cannot handle the pace of the South Koreans. Listen, they would run at him. Baba Rahman is short for pace, and we cannot afford those petty mistakes. If Gideon Mensah is fit, play Gideon Mensah. Or there have been times when we've seen right backs play at left back, countless occasions. Exactly. Cancelo, we've seen Manchester United do it. I mean, even modern day football, coaches actually prefer right-sided players play at left back, so that it will give them the opportunity to actually cut in. So if you can play, Said at right back, then you can play Tariq at right back, and expect that he would offer that the ability going forward and defending as well, because he's strong. He's also very quick on the ball, because we cannot afford to make those silly mistakes again. Then Otuado, word of caution: what makes great managers is their substitution, because you need to know how to read the game very well, which players to take off, which players to bring on, and the moment to even take off players. Because we saw that you didn't even sit down, then we capitulated and conceded those 2 goals. So these are some of the few changes. Aside that, I think that we are good to go, and we need to take our chances.
Kofi, in that particular game, an area of contention would have to be the midfield selection, because Thomas Partey, for the numbers, had a very good game. But because the stats, they say, doesn't lie, he had the most passes, had the most interceptions in the game against Portugal. But on the evidence of what we expect to see of Partey, he was practically absent in that particular game. And they are called his drop. And we saw the partnership between Elisha Owusu and Salih Samed. Do we go all of that? What kind of combo are you expecting in that midfield? And also the defense. Otuado pulled the rabbit out of the hat, starting with a back 5. We need at all costs to win against Korea, or we'll be heading back to Accra latest by Saturday morning. What sort of combinations are you expecting?
So you are saying the engines for the plane is still revving?
Qatar is probably preparing to fly us back.
The engines are doing but I mean, I look at the things you have said. I think that one word that I have for this team: be brave, be daring. Listen, if you are beating 3-0, if you are beating 4-0, we end up coming home. But go out there, compete, be bold, throw caution to the wind, get let whatever needs to happen. That's what I think, because I have always maintained that I do not have a lot of expectations for this particular Black Stars team. They're a very young team. We need to give them time. We need to give them the right technical setup. We need to be patient with them. We need to groom the boys. I have always maintained that this particular World Cup came too early for this particular Black Stars team. But I expect the coach to allow the youthful exuberance in the boys. Allow them, go out there, tell them, go out there, go play. Have fun, play. If the Koreans end up beating us 3-0, 4-0, we are better off with the experience. We are better off with the exposure. I mean, listen, these are players. I mean, you speak about Seydou, who nobody saw coming. Once again, another feather in the cap of Otoado. I think that Otoado will leave us with a lot of blessing than harm, because if you look at the players that he's been able to call in the most needing scenarios, you realize that these are players who have the temperament, and all of the players, the judgments that he makes on the players, I think spot on. So he's giving us a lot of things that we can build our future on. Like he says, that let one of the fullbacks, right fullbacks, play as the left fullback. I mean, we've seen Dennis Odoi do it a couple of times for his team this season. Oh, speaking of a very good evening to Adukwe Papu. A very fantastic. They used to be friends, Pentil and Papu, but it looks like Papu left too early and had to leave the job over for Pentil. But I think that it should be a great game. It should be a fascinating tactical battle. I think that the Koreans have more than enough energy to bend. Luckily for us, we have a young team that is full of energy, that is full of running. But unleash the shackles. That's the only advice I'll give to the coach.
So, in unleashing the shackles, are you asking one of the defensive midfielders to be dropped?
Well, I think that we don't need to be overly cautious. We can drop one of the defensive midfielders, put an extra body in the offensive end. You understand? Like he talks about the fact that everything good needs to come through Kudus. I agree, you understand? Because if you look at the Koreans, the one thing that we can beat them with has to be our movement. I think that the Asia is a fast-growing football region, but there are some things that the Africans can do that the Asians cannot do. There are some tricks that the Africans can pull out of the box that the Asians can't. I mean, and I think that we just need to go out there, confuse them with our movement, do a lot of. I expect to see a very flexible front line tomorrow. I expect to see players who can drift in and play in all of the forward positions, get the balls going in the opponent, scare them, you understand? Give them a reason to think about not coming forward. And for me, those are the things that if we end up losing 3-0, 2-0, 1-0, we have given it our best shot. We have gotten the experience. We come home, and I'm pretty sure that if we are able to groom this team and keep them together, we should be prime candidates for the next AFCON.
Lucky, I want to engage you on uncomfortable subjects and uncomfortable in quotes.
Yeah, I'll put it in quotes.
Because I don't know how to term this, whether it is coincidence or by his own voluntary will. Jordan Ayew taking off at halftime against Switzerland. 10 minutes later, the Black Stars score the opening goal, go on to score 2 goals. He's brought on against Portugal, gives away possession twice. That results into 2 goals that were conceded. There have been calls for his exemption out of the starting lineup tomorrow, and not to even have a run-in at all in the game, because there are equally other good players. How do we solve the Jordan conundrum? Because he's seemingly not having a right whenever he's worn the white jersey, but week in, week out, we see him Palace delivering the very best of stuff we want to see other Black Stars.
For those watching us, we say very good evening. This is our live broadcast, and for the Jordan conundrum, listen, Otuado has solved it. He's not a starter.
Yeah, report you start tomorrow.
The Jordan conundrum, Otuado has solved it. Jordan did not start in Ghana's biggest game at the World Cup this year against Portugal. It is the biggest game. For me, it's not about not calling him because, listen, I've seen Jordan's quality. We know his quality. His hold up play is excellent. His work rate is excellent. We see it week in, week out at Crystal Palace. There is a reason why Patrick Vieira keeps playing him week in, week out because of how hard he works and how hard he holds up play, especially if you want to play the counter-attacking system that Crystal Palace have noted for. So for the Jordan conundrum, Otuado has solved it. You are good, but you are not good to start in my team. In that game against Portugal, he didn't start him. So nobody should say, oh, he should be excluded, because trust me, if you want to exclude Jordan, there are a lot of players in there that should be excluded. They should go and exclude Bavaraman first. He does not. Bavaraman should not even have started that game. So I think Jordan should come off the bench, and his skill set, he brings on board certain skill sets that, listen, we might need going forward in this tournament. I spoke about how brilliant he is at holding up play, how brilliant he is as somebody who can initiate attack, especially when he has his back turned towards goal. He's very brilliant at that. So we can utilize his skill set when you come up against a side like South Korea, who are very quick, who are very pacey. When you are in transition from defense to attack, you need somebody like Jordan who can easily transition from defense to attack, create that link between any of the wingers or the attackers. So let's not be too quick to more or less call for his banishment or exclusion from the team. I think that would be a bit more a bit naive for me on my honest opinion. I think it would be naive to call for his exclusion. But if you look at our setup against Portugal and hopefully how I would wish we set up against the South Koreans, he went for a 5-4-1 against Portugal. Like Kofi said, he was very, a bit, conventional, laid back, a bit very packed, had a lot of bodies behind the ball. I think he should do what he did against the Swiss side. Go for a 4-2-3-1 dynamic when we are in possession of the ball. 4-2-3-1. When we lose the ball, it should metamorphose into a 4-5-1 formation where, because we know of the pace of the South Koreans. Listen, my back four, my preferred back four, we have no other choice than to go for Atizigi. We cannot throw caution to the wind by bringing in Manaf or Danlad. Atizigi imposed. The combination of Salisu and Daniel Amate, nobody can unsee them, not even Jiku. Salisu and Amate as the two center backs. Then, Ali Duseidu at right back. Then, like Kofi said, his name did not even click. Dennis Odoy at left back, because he can do that job at left back. Then for the two central midfielders, I'll go for Partey as a proper holding midfielder, like what he does for Arsenal. Then I'll give Daniel Kofitre that free role in that middle to be able to push up front and be that extra body in terms of the attacking trio would be behind the lone striker. So in essence, though it's a 4-2-3-1, it actually can evolve into a 4-1-4-1 formation, because that extra body in Daniel Kofitre adds up to the three men in. I would wish that for the first time we'll play Kamal Dean because of his pace. We'll go for Kudus, then we'll go for Dede, then Iñaki up front, or Iñaki on the left, Dede as the number 9 because of his instinct for goals. So you would have two quick men in Kamal Dean and Iñaki, with Kudus centrally, where he plays the schema role, everything creative runs through him. But with Daniel Kofitre being that extra man behind, these front three, like I said, it become a 4-1-4-1, though on paper is a 4-2-3-1. So this will be my ideal and preferred, starting lineup. You have a bit of steal, a bit of defense when you need it, and you have a lot of pace and attack when you need it as well.
But the Iñaki situation is also one that we need to find answers to. He's never been the flamboyant striker.
He's never been a striker.
He's always spoken about his love for playing out wide.
Exactly.
Given the amount we have in the shape of Antoine Semenyo,
Osman Bukari, the swimmer,
the man who drew all of the headlines with his goal celebration, and Didier used Penchant for scoring, he's actually one of our best choice in that particular area. Who do we feel in that number 9 position And where do we find, or where do we place Iñaki? Because he looks a man out of sorts. We saw it against Nicaragua.
He was poor against
He didn't
Nicaragua. He
find
was
his
poor
feet.
against Portugal.
He was poor against Switzerland. He struggled to find his feet. Portugal, the same scenario. Where exactly do we inculcate or incorporate Iñaki into this Black Stars team? And who plays that number 9 role?
I just gave you my preferred lineup. Iñaki should play out on the left or on the right. Kamaldeen also. It depends, because if Iñaki decides to play out on the right, he can cut in. I mean, he's a right winger. If Kamaldeen decides to play on the left, he can cut in as and when he wants to do. The two players can actually alternate. I've seen Kevin De Bruyne, Foden alternate at will. The two players can do that. Play the as the number 9. I don't know if you guys have realized, Kofi, for the day's height, he's very good in the air. Yeah. He's very, very good in the air. There are they can easily get at that, amazes me. So play the day as your number 9. Kudus behind him. You have these two guys alternating on the left or on the right, with Daniel Kofi adding up an extra body in there, with Partey being that holding midfielder. Let him be in his comfort zone. Then your usual back four. For me, I don't think that we should struggle with this Iñaki conundrum. You have a player who we can exploit his quality. Why do you force him and play him as a striker when you can play him out wide?
So let me take some of our messages, then we'll quickly round up. This one from Percy Boni says, no shame of Guillaume. Again, I think he was referring to the Japan-Spain scenario. And Kojo Heford says, I feel the Germans will qualify from the group. They are gradually building up. And PHA says, I feel Spain isn't strong enough to go far in this tournament. Adra Masinisa says, we are the gods. Tomorrow, Cameroon will win 100%. We look forward to seeing what happens there. But you look at the name, I wouldn't be surprised though. That's quite a new one to find in there. So we love all of your messages coming through. Keep them coming. And Kofi, to end today's broadcast, let me start with you. Predictions, quick one.
What games do we have tomorrow? Aside, so there's Uruguay, Portugal, another big game. Let me see if after Kofi's prediction, I'm trying to consult with the Oracle.
Well, I cannot predict for the Uruguay-Portugal game, but I can predict for the Black Stars game. Yeah.
Which is?
Korea 2.
Over 2.5. Over 1.5.
Look into the camera.
Korea 2, Ghana 0.
Korea 2, Ghana 0.
Yeah.
Cameroon, Serbia.
Well, this game has a lot of goals in it. I think that it will be a scoring draw.
Brazil without Neymar against Switzerland.
They will beat Switzerland. Brazil is greater than Neymar. They play a team. They play. They want to play. Did you capture my? That's great. I mean, Brazil.
So, Bismarck Eshen says 2-1 for Ghana. Bismarck, we know your prediction down. Sami Oda Khan says, Hispano, your thorough knowledge of the game. Well, then thank you very much as well, Sami. We appreciate your comments. Lucky predictions, and then we sign off.
Okay, so for the 8 games that we have, let me start off with the Black Stars. I think it will be a draw. It will be a draw. Why is my boss hounding me? It will be a draw.
Our executive producer.
I do not think that the Koreans will beat the Ghanaians. I do not also think that the Ghanaians have enough attacking threat to beat the Koreans. It would either be a scoring draw or a goalless draw. Brazil, Switzerland, I expect Brazilians to score not less than 2 goals. Cameroon, Serbia, I expect the Serbians to beat the Cameroonians. Portugal, Uruguay, that will be a tough one to call. Ooh, game might just end up also in a draw.
So I'd have the last bite on Ghana versus Korea. What is out there? Let's make it quite simple. This is a game where there'll be goals from either side. So you could go for the both teams to score. And if you want to go for a correct score prediction, go for 1-0 for the Black Stars. That's it. We'll be back again tomorrow, an hour before kickoff between Ghana and South Korea. This is Sports 101. My name is David, and I did this with Kofi Asiedu and Lucky Soglo.